Thank you so much. Please join us. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Board of Commissioners. It is February 28th, 2022. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, on our agenda, we have item number 1. I believe, Chad, you'll be leading us in this directive. And Tim Shimke, nice to see you today. I know you've missed us.
Special Senior Consultant.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
I'm here for moral support.
There's a lot of ingrained history there that he has. So, for the record, Chad Scola, Director of Solid Waste. We're reconvening today to talk further about the proposed fee and schedule service changes for Cascade Disposal for Sun River and their rural and distant rural service areas. We had a work session back in January and a public hearing on January 31st, and we're returning today with for deliberations. And for starters, want to summarize where the comments that we received during the open record period. For the Sun River service area, we got a total of 43 comments, and broke them down kind of based on where the general flow of the comments went. We received 30 comments that were in full support as proposed, with universal service for side yard, glass commingle, and trash collection. And 13 comments in opposition. And of those 13, excuse me, I should have gotten a shot of water here. Yeah. Of those 13, 9 were supportive of the proposal if it was a subscription service rather than a universal service.
You actually, on our paper, say 44 comments received, but yet it only adds up to 43.
Yeah, I thought you would catch that.
I knew you knew. I know, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no.
That was like major math here.
Opposed or
Sun River HOA did comment on it, but they were somewhat neutral while they supported the service. They were neutral on the universal versus a subscription service thing. So it was hard to fit them into one of the groups that I had structured, and I probably should have put a notation on that. But that's where that missing one was from. So with the rural service zone, we got a total of 17 comments. 5 were in full support of the proposed service, which was universal trash, commingled glass, and yard debris collection, and 12 in opposition. Of those 12, 9 supported the proposal as subscription service, primarily related to yard debris collection, and 6 opposed biweekly yard debris collection, and 4 opposed biweekly glass collection. So the kind of in summary, for Sun River, 70% supported the universal concept and 30 opposed. And interestingly enough, for the rural, it was 30% in support and 70% in opposition of it. When we put this together, we had included basically 3 options. One was no action, keep things as status quo. I don't think that's necessarily where we want to go with it. For all of them, the second option was approve the services as proposed as universal service, and the third option we brought up was approving the services as proposed on a subscription basis. So the debate seemed to be between universal versus subscription service. I had a conversation with the GM for Cascade Disposal last Friday, and the possibility of some kind of hybrid mix of universal and subscription service is something that we can entertain as well. So with that summary, I'd like to kind of start discussions with you on your thoughts on this.
Okay, I'd heard that the hybrid was possible, and in this case, it seems like it would make sense. But anyway, here from my fellow commissioners.
Anything's possible here. Obviously, it's just a function of cost and the throughput and, the equipment and the labor, I'm sure. So it's the partnership of the franchise operator. So, I understand. In fact, it was helpful last time to say, okay, remember, this is us as a community, us as a franchise server, but, us, the Board of Commissioners representing the people, to make a good choice about just the flow, the recycling, and the big picture here about what's possible. So if we could take Sun River proper, maybe that's a chunk to be able to make a decision about and go from there.
Great.
We could do that. With the rural service zone, my big concern is that everyone in the county owns our landfill, and our landfill is filling rapidly. We anticipated it was going to be full in 2029. With recent waste production rates, there are real concerns that it will be full sooner than that. And we've seen with the construction of various cells that we've had to we've had some real anxious moments where we're like, okay, well, we had a schedule for building that next cell, and we might have to move that up. So this is, when we look at the costs of these different kinds of services, I want us to think about the collective costs to everyone in Deschutes County of not doing everything we can to encourage more recycling and more waste diversion. So I haven't fully decided how I feel about this, but I would put those costs and those concerns forward as an argument, that we need to keep in mind, and we need to have an answer to if we're going to go forward with this subscription approach instead of a universal approach. It's my understanding that if we adopt a universal approach, we will accomplish, we will get better rates of recycling, more material diverted from the landfill, and that is something that is really important for us to weigh in this decision. Chad or Tim, could you put any numbers to that for me? How much better do we do in terms of recycling rates or in terms of landfilling avoided if we look at one option versus another?
That would be very difficult to do. I think, so we landfill about 200,000 ton every year. And we divert, and I'm talking about all the diversion inside the solid waste system and outside. The state says we divert about 70,000 tons every year, So, if we add this recycling out into the rural areas, we will see an increase in the amount of material that we divert. But man, it's really, really hard to say how much, I guess, Typically, 25% or more will participate, even under a universal approach. That's what the state kind of has in mind, is what happens. So I guess the way I'll put it is I don't think it'll make a huge difference in the remaining life of not landfill. But you need to remember that there's going to be another landfill in the county here, and it's likely going to be quite a ways farther out. So every ton that we divert is a ton that we don't have to transport. And it's going to cost us about $1 million a year or more to transport, depending on, where that new landfill ends up being, So your point is well taken, although I find it difficult to try and quantify that for you.
Yeah.
It's a very valid point, though.
And meanwhile, one thing we do know is that new landfill, or that new solid waste management facility, will cost us $14 million. And in my mind, if we can avoid months or half years or years in terms of when we need to spend those dollars, that has real value. I mean, we can talk more about the rural service zone now, or we can move forward with the Sun River piece first, or however my colleagues want to do that.
Well, I believe we can move, if there's a motion, we could move forward with the Sun River piece initially.
Yeah, I think we'll put direction to this, and then it can be written up into agreements, whatever. So one question about Sun River, and maybe this is for our operators to understand about the traffic generated in the flow. So, I go through Sun River and been there many times. I don't think I've ever seen a truck go through. I just never been there during those business hours, I guess. So what does that flow look like? I'm thinking those, because there's some, pretty tight little cul-de-sac ends and everything in there. Is that a standard truck going through, and is there a one-man crew or a two-man crew? So I'm just wondering if we can get a little bit of insight into that. Sun River proper. If you had to grab a mic just because it's all recorded and video.
And identify yourself too,
Yeah,
please.
so thank you very much, Erwin. So my thought is, are we going to send another truck on a different day, or would it be the same day? Would it, one or two people? Just kind of the scenario it looks like.
Yeah, so with the universal program in Sun River, it would be one additional truck with 2 operators on that truck per day.
And then it'd be on a different day than regular trash, or the same?
It would be 5 days a week, because the reason we did it that way, we have the influx of rental homes that turn over so often. So in an effort to capture those one time a week, 2 times a week, 3 times a week.
Oh, okay.
That would give us that option.
Yeah, so then, sometimes there is multiple service at an address a week.
Correct.
Okay, I hadn't even thought about that, okay. So this would be kind of that same scenario, where it would be,
It would be the scenario, correct. It's the same way we do trash.
well, and that helps. So then there's a truck in town every day, and this would be another truck in town every
Correct.
day. And would the recycling truck be the same size, the same, kind of same rig, just different payload?
Correct, different commodity pickup. It'd be a split body truck that has a compartment for glass and one for yard debris, or for commingle. So they'd be able to hold both of those commodities.
And it would be 5 days a week?
Correct.
Oh, that's interesting. Thank you very much.
Can I just make sure we have your name and who you're?
Yes.
And who are you?
Everyone's sweating them, Cascade Disposal.
So, yeah, we've worked together before, so I knew that information. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that information.
Yeah, so I did not have that. That was interesting.
Well, it's something that makes sense if you've got
Yep.
people coming in and out of town.
But I was envisioning 1 day a week, so I mean, it's good to know that there's,
Sun River's
Yeah,
fairly unique
different,
in the service area, yeah.
It has unique, priorities, and because of the community and the visitors that stay there. So is there a motion then for Sun River?
well, so just getting clarity here, as I say, I don't know that I'm going to support universal service on all these things, but I think it may be the right answer for Sun River. So I'm just, trying to, make sure we're talking here and
Well,
comparing notes.
thank you, Chad, for compiling the answers and the fact that 70% of the people in Sun River do support the universal. And it does clearly make sense, because you do have that, it's not a constant neighborhood situation, it's visitors. And, visitors are not going to take the trash can out, and they're truly not going to bring it back, so.
So just one, it can just nod, but these trucks are always ending their day at the landfill, so when there's trash picked up, it's at the landfill for disposal, and then this would be at the Deschutes Recycling for taking it off, or maybe not, maybe there's.
We work with Republic
Yep.
Services to manage that material.
So to go into Bend either way, I guess is the message, yeah. Okay, thank you. As I say, a universal service in Sun River kind of seems to be the opportunity here, especially, when it's 5 days a week. I wasn't even thinking that when I'm glad I asked that question.
Good question.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as I say, I don't know that we need to vote on each one of these, but just making statements that make, do we all support or?
Yeah, I mean, at
Is
this
there
point,
different-
we're just directing staff to prepare a board order. So, I mean, we could do a split board order, or, you know, a split direction, Dave, or?
Yes, that's what I was told, that we actually could split it up,
So if you-
which does seem to make sense. And that order would be a rate of an increase of $14 a month then for Sun River.
For universal service.
Right. Okay, so we don't want to do a split order then? Are we going to go,
I think we're just putting direction to each piece of this is what I
Okay.
was thinking we'd be doing.
Yeah, I think Sun River and the rural and distant rural need to be kind of handled differently.
right,
I mean, is that a valuable decision for this step here, right?
If we're voting on direction, if we're, you know, if the motion is to direct staff to prepare a board order, do we, I mean, is the vote on two things together, or is it two separate votes, I guess? And I don't
know that you need a vote on the process. If you choose to, you certainly can, or it'll kind of lend itself. So if there's a motion just for the Sun River piece of this, then there'll be an order that'll reflect that, and then potentially either that same order or a second order that reflects whatever you do with the rural.
and it's the distant rural service zone and the rural service zone.
Correct.
So we actually have 3 decisions.
And when we prepared that board order, that rate sheet, we have the ability to have as many exhibits as we want. So Exhibit A will be the rates for, you know, collection of trash and commingled in the rural area. Exhibit B will be the subscription, if you want a subscription for yard debris, or, you know, the cost to add yard debris. I mean, it could be very simple with one exhibit, but it can have as many exhibits.
Okay.
Typically, we're coming to you, and I've got an exhibit for what Cascade is doing in the rural zone, a different one for what Republic is doing in the rural zone, you know, a different one for what Wilderness is doing down there in their distant rural zone. So we can structure that board order as we need.
So we have a couple of choices, but we can bundle it all into one order.
Yes.
And that's, so we could just do one motion with, you know, multi-pronged direction within it. So with that, you know, I don't think we need to do separate votes on each thing. I think we should just come up with our plan. It sounds like everyone is in support of moving forward with the Sun River Universal.
Yes? And then the rural service zone, any feedback on that? That's the one that's $10 a month, and it seems that the parties that did participate were saying, please, make it subscription basis.
Correct. The majority of those, their concerns or issues were with yard debris. Some of the people that commented directly said, you know, they take advantage of fire free and then half off in the fall. Owners of larger properties with a lot of pine trees. I don't have pine trees on my lot, thankfully, but apparently it's just an ongoing battle. And they felt that the biweekly yard debris service may not be able to accommodate their needs, and they're pretty well adapted to the services we have available at the landfill. That was one of the prevailing sets of comments that came up in opposition to the subscription service, or excuse me, to the universal service.
Yes, 6 people said that, yeah, they opposed it.
That was actually probably the primary reason why we haven't pushed for yard debris in the rural zone already, is because Those lots are rather large, and a 90-gallon cart every other week just doesn't meet their needs, so they're going to have to either burn or haul it to the landfill anyway. That's kind of what's been reflected in the comments. So there's consistency there with what we assumed and now what we're hearing. So, it's a difficult choice, if you're really focused on wildfire prevention. That was the reason why we proposed it as universal. Everybody should participate in this. But at the same time, it's unique out there, and there's a lot of material out there. And so, you certainly have the ability to say, well, we'd rather go subscription in that area if you choose.
And speaking to the conditions that we're talking about, there's lots of good reasons to explore additional options besides, a biweekly 90-gallon bin, or just relying on Fire Free. There's reason to look at other ways to facilitate disposal of yard debris and, defensible space fuels reduction, waste products. In addition to those, we've talked about before the neighborhoods where they let people put stuff along the curb once a year, or where neighborhoods where they'll order up a dumpster just for their neighborhood, and keep it there to be emptied once a week during May. So I could see how we could conceivably accomplish the goal of making fuels reduction and disposal of that material easier through other channels besides this 90-gallon bin biweekly. Okay. So I guess one other question about this: what about could you make the yard debris bin? Could you make that? What is the term again? Subscription. Could you make that subscription and add glass to the universal?
Yeah, we can certainly do that. Keep in mind that in the rural zone, they already have universal service, which is limited to commingle and trash. So you can certainly add glass to that mix and do the same thing in the distant rural, and then have yard debris as a subscription service in both the rural and distant rural.
Okay. And the comments in opposition that were asking for subscription instead, those were mostly focused on the yard debris, not...
Primarily. There were a few that had comments on glass. They use the redemption center, and they make a trip once every 6 months to the landfill for their non-refundable glass.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to see some opportunity for a subscription service in that area. I've talked to one person who said, "Oh yeah, I don't do big yard cleanup, but when I do, I end up paying extra, and I even put them in garbage bags because I'm not in a good spot. They don't have a pickup truck." So there's just a whole mix of activity out there. This one, I think we should step in, offer some services, subscription, and I know it's not the most optimal business model for the franchise operator, but we'll find out what the community's ready for, and make it available, because all of a sudden it really could take off too. So yeah, I really do support subscription at this point. And I'm thinking yard waste when I refer to this mindset. I guess the whole package. How do you complement recycling on that? So we may either want to talk that out more for clarity or whatever. But yeah, so subscription services seems to be a real great opportunity there.
I'd also like to consider that kind of split option of adding glass to the universal in the rural service zone, and then making the yard debris subscription.
So
We'll consolidate glass and commingle with trash as universal service, and yard debris as a subscription service.
Yeah.
So, what's the industry statement about glass? I just know it's big, it's heavy, and it's not worth a lot. So, what's the downside in just putting it in the landfill and hoping one of those roller feet crush it instead of keeping that airspace? I'm serious.
We have a lot of internal discussions about that.
Yeah.
We do have goals for recycling that the state is asking us to get to, and adding glass to that is certainly part of the formula there.
But it just costs a lot. So.
It's not the most efficient of the recyclables, yeah.
And it's inert. So as I say, I mean, I had to just think, okay, what are we doing here and why are we doing it?
It's pretty benign in the environment.
So, when we established the rural collection zone and we're gonna add recycling at the curb in that zone, we purposely left glass off of that list at that point in time, because at that point in time, glass was very, very expensive. And we were paying a lot of money for somebody to take it off our hands, you know? I would say that has changed over the years, and that was 20 years ago. And so now glass is really, I would say, on par as far as a marketable thing. It's not any worse than some of the other negative value materials that we collect, right? So I don't think it quite has that stigma. The issue with glass is that it cannot be commingled with the rest of the recyclables. It's got to be handled separately. So that's another container, and a special pickup for that. That's kind of where the expense lies. But as far as just recycling glass in general, it's not really as bad as it used to be.
Yep. Well, and so then I think of, glass recycling. It's wonderful if we can get it to the place it's going to be reused, right? But if it's not in Central Oregon and it's hundreds of miles away, it's still, even if it almost has value, that trip again is the silly part, putting it on a truck and how many gallons of diesel to get it somewhere.
Well, I just think of Fryer, because that's where I go with all my recycling. And it's only taken, 4 years for my husband now to do this. And I'm
You got him trained, you're saying?
Yeah, finally, he's doing it. I mean, I've been recycling my whole life. But when I think about the container at Fryer, that's all full of glass, I mean, it is amazing. I don't know how long that takes to fill, but truly, it's got to weigh a lot when it is to the top. So, but it's good to hear that you're saying that it's not like such a negative as it was.
Right.
And that's important, I think.
And if we want to talk about energy costs to recycle glass, we should compare it to the alternative, which is making new glass. And making new glass requires a hell of a lot of energy too. So, I mean, there's, there in terms of energy efficiency, in terms of, cost efficiency, in terms of saving us space. Basically every square inch of space you take up in our landfill costs money. So, I mean, do you want your costs, do you want to spend your money on digging a bigger and bigger hole in the ground? Or do you want to spend your money to recycle materials and keep things, keep good raw materials cycling through our economy? I would say I want to spend our, I want our costs to be dedicated to waste diversion and all of the benefits that are associated with that.
Well, as I say, so I'm back to the concept of working through the process of a subscription service supporting the yard waste. And now, do we want to? I guess I don't know the matrix of, because it was mentioned glass could be the alternate week maybe, or whatever the concept is, or going to Universal for glass.
And leaving the yard debris as a subscription. I mean, I that would be my preference, or how I'd like to.
But do we, we recycle at our house pretty aggressively, getting what we can. And then, glass is separate, and I wonder how much goes to the landfill or how much gets recycled just by somebody putting it in a box or a container and bringing it out too. So I don't know, if we're charging somebody for that, are we really upping the glass a lot or just a little bit? But I don't know.
We'll need to revisit with the board on numbers from Cascade Disposal for doing a subscription service for yard debris, and then adding glass to Universal. So, we'll come back with an order for Sun River and possibly an order for for the distant rural and rural zone for you to consider. And if those numbers don't look good, I guess we can step back again.
So maybe enough decisions have been made already today?
If I'm
Guidance?
clear, we'll prepare an order for subscription service for Sun River.
No.
For
I'm sorry, Universal.
Universal for Sun.
For Universal for Sun River. And we'll get with Cascade Disposal to look at numbers and costs for Universal, for commingled glass for rural and distant rural, and subscription service for yard debris.
But here on this, your schedule, you've got glass and yard to be together. Are they each going to be increased at $10 a month? I mean, you're listing them together on our,
No, the $10 a month proposal was to add glass and yard debris to the rural service.
Is alternating weeks.
Correct. Yeah, it wasn't 10 for glass and 10 for yard debris. It was $10 total to add those two commodities to the pickup service
So that's already in there. I mean,
as universal.
So,
yep, yeah, so
does
that's
that
what you
mean
were
that-
asking for.
so does that mean if you sliced off the yard debris from the universal, then it would be less than $10? Or,
I would think Cascade Disposal will want to take a look at the numbers for yard debris as a subscription service
got it.
in anticipation that the participation rate may not be what it is if it was in the universal.
Right.
So I think you can expect a rate adjustment for the rural zone that already has commingled to add glass to that mix.
Okay.
And then there'll be a rate established for subscription yard debris service in the rural zone. Sun River will now be the only distant rural zone in Cascades area, will have every week commingled and glass recycling, but no yard debris option. And that commingled and glass will be universal. That's, I think, what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I support that.
outside of Sun River, I want people to have the option not to spend more money, truly. I'm looking at, inflation in today's world, and truly, people are really looking at ways to cut back, and what can they do that's not as expensive? And so, if someone doesn't mind adding, $10 a month, sure, but I think, I really feel like that needs to be their choice. Maybe I'm the only one here, but I'm the one, I've been recycling for, my whole life. That's how I grew up.
I mean, I guess I would just say I want to think about people's pocketbooks too, but the cost of building a $14 million new landfill 6 months earlier on all of us is a cost. So, I mean, people are gonna be paying either to recycle, or they're gonna be paying to create more landfill capacity faster.
So Commissioner Dare, for clarity, we were referring to adding glass service is going to bump up a base fee different
Right.
than a subscription service for yard waste.
Yes, so you're going to have to get back to us with that number. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, it'll be good to see the numbers on that.
Sure, yeah. I mean, at this point, we can, when we return to the board, we can have an order for Sun River ready and have numbers for rural and distant rural, and then follow up another time after that with an order accommodating the decision made on the rural, distant rural service areas.
And Chad, can you explain where distant rural service zone is? Because we received no comments from those people.
So the rural zone is essentially the area immediately southwest and east of the Bend city limits. It includes Deschutes River Woods, Woodside Ranch, Conestoga Hills. The distant rural zone, they have a couple of, I think about 40 customers out Dodge Road, out east of town off Highway 20. I'm not sure exactly, I don't recall exactly what line. I think it's south of Highway 20 essentially, going down towards, again, Conestoga Hills and Woodside Ranch. And yeah, we had no comments from anyone in the distant rural zone.
Okay, so that is Dodge Road, south of Highway 20 is distant rural. Okay.
Does it make sense to make the whole package universal in the distant rural without having the whole package be universal in the rural? I mean, or is it a really odd thing to be trying to provide this like comprehensive service to such a small number of properties.
I think that is our intent, is to establish a new rural zone that would include everything in Cascades area except Sun River proper. So there's a few outliers out there. Those will get rolled into the rural zone and have that same level of service as everybody in the rural zone. And Sun River would be the only distant rural zone in their area, their collection area. And then again, that'll have a totally separate recycling option there, or recycling requirement, I guess, or, I mean, I really like Sun River, the universal approach. I mean, the depot is a problem, and will continue to be a problem for some time. So again, I'm stressing, let's be really aggressive at trying to get it off the curb instead of getting it out of the depot. And that hopefully will solve a fairly significant problem down there. So that's why I'm advocating for the universal approach at Sun River.
I think we all agree.
We're there,
Universal
okay.
Sun River. That seems to be 100%. So, definitely it makes sense. For that community, yes, universal works.
So one other question about yard waste service, is there any seasonality to that or not? As in, in the dead of winter, I'm not going to be probably trying to find needles under the snow and trying to get that cart out there. So I just think there's a window in there that's not yard pickup.
I think Commissioner Chang asked that question at the.
And maybe we did, I don't remember.
Yeah, and I did do a little bit of reach out to both Republic and Cascade Disposal, and oddly enough, there is a slight seasonal variation too, but not as much as you would expect.
So it's always utilized basically seasonally.
In the middle of winter, I got maybe 2 weeks when I'm trying to chunk my Christmas tree up into little pieces, and and the bin is useful for that.
I had that service at my home, and I find that I use it most weeks, not every week in the wintertime, but there's enough pine needles and pine cones coming down all year round. I mean, unless there's snow on the ground, we're still able to get them up and get them in that cart. So it depends on the weather, I guess.
Isn't it great exercise, though? I mean, I don't have any pine trees, and I really, truly wish I did, because I love pine trees, but, I have juniper trees.
Is that what you asked for? Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I'll bring you some needles and cones sometime.
Yeah, there you
well, I want the really big cones, the
Yeah,
sugar pine
there
cones.
you go.
Those are what I love. So, yeah, if you have any sugar pine cones, Tim,
Okay.
save them for me.
My wife collects them, so I'm sure I can dig a few up.
They're so beautiful. Anyway. All right, so are we good enough to go then, Chad?
Let me just restate one more time. So we'll prepare an order for universal service for Sun River, and we'll revisit with the board with numbers on universal glass and commingle and waste collection for both rural and distant rural, and then a subscription service for yard debris, rural and distant rural.
Sounds
Great. Thank
exactly
you.
like what we decided.
We got it?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
And we'll keep the pressure on Ed to, come up with more ways that people can dispose of their yard debris and hazardous fuels reduction.
It's been a topic of conversation. It really has.
And I'll expect a
Thank you.
big bag of the sugar pine cones tomorrow, Tim, if you're driving by.
All right.
You want them cinnamon scented or just?
Surely, that would be nice. Okay. I do believe we have a presentation from Young Audiences. Laura, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. For the record, Laura Skundrick, Administrative Services. So during the board's review of the 2022 Arts and Culture Grant Program applications, the board had indicated interest in hearing more from one of the applicants, and that is Young Audiences of Oregon and Southwest Washington. So today with us, we have on Zoom the Young Audiences Central Oregon Program Manager, Christy Zarilla Soto, and I will let her take it away.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Thank you. Hello, hi.
Hi, Christy. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting us. So my name is Christy Zorrilla Soto. I'm the Central Oregon Program Manager at Young Audiences Art for Learning. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Peru. I came to Central Oregon when I was 17 years old, and I went to Redmond High School. And in Redmond High School, we have a huge art programming, actually. And that's why I decided to become an artist, and that's why I decided to pursue a master's degree in education. Because art in this kind of a residency program helps me, support me in all this migration process, cultural assimilation, and also to learn a new language that was English. So that's why I'm here, working in the same thing and trying to support kids as someone else supported me in the past. So Young Audiences is a connector. We inspire young people and expand their learning through the arts. By pairing talented teaching artists or artists who decide to have another career as educators, also teaching artists with school and community programs. We bring our education and we bring arts and education together. So a little bit of the story of Young Audiences. So Young Audiences was founded in 1958 as a local chapter of the nation's largest art in education organization. Early years, the focus was presenting classical music to young audiences, that's the name. And we now grow in scope and programming, evolving from presenting only classical music performance in our early years to currently offering a full range of educational programs or art programming in multiple disciplines and cultures. The only arts organization actually in the region to do so. Since 2018, we have this kind of program here in Central Oregon to fill the vacuum left by Arts Central closing. So Young Audiences has engaged and inspired millions of children with our education. And I was one of those kids, not with Young Audiences, but with teaching artists in my classrooms. So the programs that we have different type of formats. So one of them is performances that is more musical or musicians, dances. Then we have artist residencies and workshops. So that's the program that we have here in Central Oregon. We used to offer different kind of programming for kids, for students of elementary, middle, and high school, so they can explore our language. And then we have also family art nights and teachers training. The teachers training is to support artists and also to give them some knowledge or skills as artist techniques, but also in education and also like how to fill your taxes as an artist. We have also 2 delivery formats that are in person. So the teaching artists used to go to the school and have the program in a school with the kids in maybe a school classroom, or maybe any other area that schools provide us. And then we have virtual programs. The virtual programs can be or could be live programs, just like now, teaching artists talking with kids, with the classroom teacher, or it could be also pre-recorded programs. So pre-recorded programs are more like a tutorial, so the teaching artists make a video especially for the kids, the classroom, or the school needs. Our education formats are four. We have different kind of or different type of art disciplines like musicians, music, visual arts, performance. Then also we truly believe that art is skill building. So I'm very happy with this area of the program because I think art can develop different kind of skills, can build different kind of skills, more than an art technique, more than learn just to paint something beautiful or make some home decoration. Arts could be more than that. Arts could be skill building, social emotional. Arts can give a voice to some teenagers, kids that are struggling with some issues or problems. Arts, another education format is art as an avenue to cultural understanding. So in Portland area, we have different programs with artists from different backgrounds and also cultures. We have artists from Peru, we have artists from Nigeria, and so arts can be a way to learn more or to learn a little bit of a culture, traditions, belief, ways of living, and also ways to express themselves. And then arts integration. So the art as a language to learning other subjects and accessing to different learning styles. So that's for me too, because for me it's a little bit difficult to learn just by reading something or just by hearing something. I need to have all my sense involved in the thing that I'm learning. So this is something good for kids, so kids can learn any type of subject through art practices. We are serving now all these areas, Portland and Vancouver, with 10 counties. And in Central Oregon, we are serving Crook County, Deschutes County, and Jefferson County too. Everything and all our programs are happening thanks to our team. So this is our team. Here I am. And then we have Christy with the K, that is the program's director. And we also have Coco, Josephine, who help us with operation, community engagement, and also they support schools and venues that are going to have the programs. Career Connections, there's Alana. And then we have artist support and learning, Maya and Tony. They used to create workshops and different kind of activities to support our artists to have more opportunities or to learn about other kind of opportunities around. Then we have the Right Brain Initiative with Ryan and Kim. So they support classroom teachers and our classroom teachers and teaching artists too. And Lauren, that is our executive director. In Central Oregon, we have our Central Oregon roster artist team. Most of them are visual artists. A visual artist is any type of art that we can see, like painting, photography, what else? Collage, and different kind of arts, but that we can see, only like see. So we have Anne, Elise, Jennifer, and Kathleen. And also we have in our team a graphic designer, that is Julie. Kelly, a musician. And Lindsay, she's a movement artist, and she got really nice programs related to movement, obviously, and also a space and how we feel our body in the space. The programs that we have in Central Oregon, unfortunately, we only have residencies and workshops. We have a lot of programs in Portland area, but it's a little bit difficult to bring those programs here. But we want to. A residency program is a series of 3 to 5 sessions of art, where the kids can involve with an artist discipline or with the artist discipline. So we just connect talented teaching artists with a school, depending on the school needs. And also we have workshop. A workshop is just a one-day session where the kids can explore this kind of art. Obviously, in a residency program that is more like 3 sessions or 5 sessions, kids can engage with this kind of art. And also we are working with projects and objectives. So an objective could be develop a social emotional skill, or maybe a beautiful landscape. No, it depends on the artist's proposal. So here we have some pictures of last year programming or last year residency programs. This is nature journaling by Jennifer. So Jennifer used to take those kids to something like a field trip to draw everything that is around, just to feel the nature and trying to represent the nature by drawing. This is another residency program named Color Exploration and Paper Engineers. So here, this is for little kids, and they learn about color theory and paper origami, folding papers. Then also we have the programs that I just showed you are about more like techniques, but we also have programs that relate social and emotional with art, and this is one of Elise. It's named Anger Monsters, and what she makes in the program is to guide the kids, the teens, to understand what is anger, and to show in a collage, in a paper, how anger looks like, how are our monsters when we are angry. And then we also have some programs related to the place where we live. And this is from Elise too, by Elise. It's named Beautiful Landscapes. So kids used to draw the landscape that we have around Central Oregon. Also program for little kids, like drawing animals using different shapes, like circles, different shapes where they can learn about sizes. And then also another program by Kathleen is Let's Draw Animals and Color. Draw animals and coloring those animals. About movement, Lindsay has a residency program named Exploring Movement. What she makes is just guide people to feel the nature, to feel their own bodies, and also to connect with the people that is around. So most of the kids are really happy to do this kind of programs because they can move all around. We have also musicians that teach our kids to play violin, and the graphic designer, Yuli. Yuli used to make programs related to basic graphic design knowledge. And this is one of the programs named Make a Movie Poster Staring by You. So this is Losing Mount Bachelor. And we have different kind of posters. And also she made a program named Business Card, Design Your Own Business Card. So kids can learn names, like full name, also telephone numbers, addresses. And she got another program. She had another program named Design Your Own Cereal Box. So in that program, kids learn about what is the ingredients of a cereal, if they are good or not. So our education in Central Oregon and in Oregon, students in Oregon do not have equitable access to arts or art educations. Over the past five years, arts education offering in the school have slowly increased. Most of the schools offer now at least one arts course in Oregon, in the state of Oregon. And here are some screenshots that I took of Redmond. The first one is Redmond School District, and the second one is Ben Lapine School Districts. In color are the courses that every school have. And in gray, there are the schools that don't have any kind of art program. Art programming in the schools. So in Redmond area we have some schools, most of them elementary, that they do not have any art programming. So that's why we are here, because we are trying to offer those programs to the schools that don't have the opportunity to have an art programming or art teachers in classrooms. So in Central Oregon, Young Audiences has served 12 schools, 1,319 students with 67 fully subsidized programs. And in 2020 alone, Young Audiences Oregon connected about 149 schools, 44,000 students. So we can see the difference. Now we are trying to have more programming here in Central Oregon and support more kids, support more schools to have a complete education, to have a different kind of opportunities for the kids, like the opportunity that I had when I was a student in Redmond High School. We have other programs that we want to grow our programming here in Central Oregon. And these are the programs that we have in Portland area, and we wish to have these programs here in the future. We have soon. So the Right Brain Initiative is a partnership between school districts and the cultural community to integrate arts programming into the Portland area schools. In this kind of programs, a school engages in students engage in a creative process which connects an art form with another subject and meets involving objectives in both. Then we have career arts. This is the audio set studio. And so Audio Set is an out of school program for students 14 to 18 years of age to get real world training in the arts and science of sound engineer. So this program is taught by a top professional in the field. Audio Set program includes live sound engineer, studio sound engineering, and home studio sound engineering for teens. The other program that we have in Portland area is Shift. So Shift is an experimental fashion show where people can flex their creative design muscles by collaborating and creating alongside of a professional designer mentor. Participants in the program in Shift will dream up and fabricate a garment made of recycled materials. And a beloved drag performer will walk the final designs down to the runway. So I wish to have this program here. And then we have Fun for the Arts that used to be Run for the Arts. Fun for the Arts is a one-day region-wide dance-a-thon that will equitable distribute funds to participating schools. So this program starts in 1977 with a single school, just one school. And now we are serving more than 129 schools. During the pandemic, we had the opportunity to shift to a more arts-aligned activity, and virtual, of course. So now we have this dance-a-thon. Fun for the Art exists because of the hard work, creative, and of our sponsors, and also our schools, participating in schools. And we also have another program named Teaching Artists Studio. Teaching Artists Studios is a professional development program for teaching artists in Oregon and Southwest Washington. We work with artists from all disciplines and medias, performing, visual, literary, digital, and more, to deepen their teaching practice and expand their impact around our students. So what's coming? Those are the programs that we have in Portland area, and I wish we could have those programs here to support students, schools, and also teaching artists or art teachers. What is coming in Central Oregon? So now I have an open call for artists, for teaching artists. I'm looking to diversify our teaching artist group. So I know that we need more BIPOC artists in our group, more like cultural artists in our group. So every single kid can feel represented by those artists. Unfortunately, we have some communities that do not have access to our education at all. So we are willing to give them the opportunity. Also, we are looking for bilingual or bicultural, so they can serve young or kids, teenagers from different backgrounds and break this language barrier. Some of those kids in classroom, they don't feel represented by a teaching artist because of the language, because they cannot understand very well English. Sometimes it happens. Also, all the teaching artists that work with us in our roster team, they have professional development opportunities for free, part of the programs. And also we are looking for social, emotional, and cultural connection programming, or our education programs. So arts can develop as arts as a skills building, and also arts for learning other subjects, not only a technique. Like I said, art is not just painting, art is not something yeah, it's something beautiful, but it's more than that, and also can support us in different ways. And also, we have a spring event that is coming soon. And in this spring event, we want to present young audiences, share our mission, our programs, our goals. We are looking for create connections to diversify our roster artists, and also to connect with the schools, the principals, teachers, and the community that can support us or give us some resources. This spring event is also to hear the community, to hear what the community needs, to hear what and understand what the schools, the principals, teachers, kids, students need. And also we want to share areas where people suggest ideas for us and support us, create subcommittees to support the programs and the goal of our programs. So, like I said, I was one of those kids, and I know how our education support me in my whole migration process, and also to adapt a new culture. So I'm here because I want to give more opportunities to kids and support them in all this education process. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Christy.
Yeah.
What is the date of your spring event then?
We actually don't have the day yet, but we are just talking. Maybe it's going to be in May. Yeah, the day is going to be announced like soon.
Okay, great. I just wanted to get it in the record if you did have a date. Thank you so much.
I can email you the date.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know art is so important, and, you know, some children, that's really what they identify with, and it's incredibly important that it should be part of everyone's education on some level. So you'll let us know on the date then, I take it.
Yeah, thank you, I will.
Can I ask for a little bit more information about the connections with the school? So you are delivering a lot of all these programs in schools, and there's a lot of mention of kind of the interaction with schools and this community needs assessment to hear and understand schools' needs and communities' needs better. So how who do you work with at the schools? Do you have contacts at the school level, at the school district level? Just how do you, who are your liaisons who get you into the schools?
We have a database of teachers and principals that connect us with the school. We don't have a lot of connections. I don't have a connection with all the schools. I'm new actually in the position. I'm here like maybe 2 months, and I'm trying to make all the connections that I can. So with principals, school board, teachers, art teachers, and also other organizations like Better Together, like Juntos, other organizations, nonprofit organizations that are already working in schools too.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, I was just trying to understand, how you're connected to the schools and kind of what those connections look like. That's helpful. Thank you.
So this was an application that we reviewed, and we just didn't have a lot of information when we talked about it in December. Thank you so much for joining us. Kind of along those same lines, if there's an application, maybe talking about which schools we're in and what connections you have would be the valuable thing for us when we see, funding opportunity come around again for this, just to see how it fits in. Because, if I hadn't heard about it, I'm like, well, I don't know who they are and who they know and who they serving. So thank you so much for presenting the information you provided today. And yeah, just a little bit more information you know, who the connections are in the community, because that'll really help us.
Thank you. So most of our board members live in Portland area. Yeah, like as Melody says, most of our board members live in Portland area, and most of our programming is in Portland area. We are new in this area, and we are trying to make all the connections that we actually can't. So we only have one board member here in Central Oregon, but we are looking for more people that want to be part of our advisory committee and also to support our programming.
So I think the Cultural Coalition is opportunity. We just had a meeting with them, and you know, there's other connections to be had for you to really plug in here. Good.
Great. No, thank you so much, Christy.
Thank you for your time.
No, thank you. Grants for the fuel reduction grant?
A big one.
Hey, Commissioners, I'll just share with you as we transition to the next one. We did just receive confirmation from the City of Redmond's lobbyist that $350,000 was approved for the Oasis Village as part of the legislative package yesterday. So just sharing that good news with you as we transition from one big topic to the next.
And was that, did the City of Redmond make that request, or?
It was our board's request. It was your request that we asked for to serve Oasis Village for the infrastructure costs.
Great.
So that was your request, and I just received the information from the Redmond City Manager. Of course, very pleased.
I thought we actually allocated like 300 and some thousand for it too,
We did.
out of our ARPA funds.
We did.
So is this on top of those ARPA funds?
Correct. So we allocated $367,000 for the actual village, and then we asked for $350,000 from this legislative request for the infrastructure to extend from the City of Redmond to serve the property. And
Oh, you mean the utilities?
the utilities.
Oh, the utilities, that's exactly what, okay, thanks, that's great to hear. Yes, I was wondering where that was going to come in, if we were going to have to get the utilities out of that core funding of the 9.5 million. So, okay, good. Thank you for the good news. Hello, Ed?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Ed Keith, County Forester. Today, I have document 2022-223, and that's in a grant agreement between the Oregon Department of Forestry and Deschutes County. You will likely recall in late December, I was before you with a request to apply for funding to the Oregon Department of Forestry for a program that is new to them. It's through the Omnibus Wildfire Bill, Senate Bill 762, and it specifically is called the Landscape Resiliency Program. And Senate Bill 762 provided $20 million for that program in competitive grants. And so we worked with a variety of partners to pull together that application in late December and submitted that in early January. The total came for the entire grant came to just a little over $6.2 million. We facilitated putting that together, but we're not accepting all those funds. We did put a request in for $109,200 for as part of that grant to fund some work on a Deschutes County property, which is off of Hurtley Ranch, which is kind of in the Cloverdale area, just outside of Sisters, north of Highway 126. So that this specific grant agreement is to provide funds for that as part of that overall effort with that $6.25 million. And all those grant agreements are proceeding individually between the Oregon Department of Forestry and the particular landowners that are receiving funding to do that fuel reduction work. It's a fairly short turnaround as far as grants go. All these funds need to be expended and work completed by the end of June 2023. And that's just coincides with the end of the state biennium. There is a small amount of match that we included in that. That was for a couple different projects that we actually already had funded. The way that the Oregon Department of Forestry put this out is you could count match going back to the start of the biennium. So we had included all the funding for our Firewise communities that we've provided in this past year that are within the project area boundary, as well as a smaller project we're doing on another county, about 11 different lots on Drafter Road in Lapine. And so that's where our match is coming from funds that we already had budgeted and or expended. So with that, that's kind of a quick overview of this grant and Deschutes County's role in that.
So,
Any questions?
Ed, my question is, it was the total grant we submitted for, what was it, like Klamath and all over the place, but we only submitted for $109,000?
For Deschutes County's treatment of that one parcel within this landscape, correct.
Okay, there's no other spots that we're going to get some money from this grant?
Not from this grant for Deschutes County land, no. This was one, because of the short turnaround, we tried to identify projects that were basically ready to go. So this was one I was already, in advance of this opportunity, working with Christy, Christy Bollinger, property manager, on getting treated and just looking for funds to treat that. As you know, we do have some other projects going on county land, the largest one being east of Redmond through different grant opportunities. But this was the parcel that was identified for this particular opportunity.
And if you look at the sort of the precursor of this funding opportunity, the e-board funding that the state put out through ODF, what was that, last year, Ed? 10 months ago? 8 months ago?
Yes, that was last spring, or yeah. We completed the work last spring, and that was on 4 different county properties that we had treated for that grant opportunity.
Yeah, so for that state grant program through ODF, there was much less money available, and we got a huge chunk of it. It's like $300,000, something like that. So,
just shy of 300,000, yes.
So if we didn't ask for a lot for this one, it's not like we're missing out on the state funding opportunities. We just did a big chunk last year, and now there's federal funding for all that work east of Redmond, and for this project we had this small piece, and the good news about that is that it allowed all these other private and and local public landowners in our region to come in on this funding opportunity, and for us to get thousands of acres of non-federal land treated in our region.
So what is it in Deschutes County then? If it's not us, who else is getting this funding?
Yeah, I could go down a quick list of a few. Bend Parks and Rec is treating about 460 acres in what's called the Eastgate Natural Area east of Bend. The Deschutes Land Trust is treating a little over 300 acres. That's mostly in the Greater Sisters area, where they have a concentration of properties they're working on. The Deschutes Soil and Water Conservation District is working through the Natural Resource Conservation Service, which is a federal agency with 4 different landowners in Deschutes County. The Upper Deschutes Watershed Council is working with 3 landowners in the Sisters area. That will not only do fuels reduction, but actually use those byproducts of the forest thinning to do a stream restoration project in White's Creek. And then the Oregon Department of Forestry is working with 10 different landowners I don't know that I'll list all of those off, but a large one is Shanda Asset Management. They're working both in the Lapine area as well as west of Bend. They own what is known as either the Bull Springs Tree Farm or Skyline Forest, depending on who you're talking to. And then the other funding, well, yeah, I could keep going. Black Butte Ranch has some.
Do you have a total on the number of acreage then, Ed? I'm really just curious, how many, if you can just send it to me later, how many acres is it actually going to be worked on?
Okay.
That would be good.
It totals up, yeah, I will send you the summary. I have all that in a kind of complex spreadsheet, but I will get a summary together and add it up. I think the grant is going to pay for somewhere in the neighborhood of about 5,300 acres, with quite a bit more being matched by a variety of partners, including the Forest Service, who is actually treating about 43,000 acres just in this biennium alone. And so we were able to leverage their match in this as well. And I do have that summarized, so I'll get that over to you.
Oh, great. Well, thank you. Well, I'm glad to know that we've already contributed the partner match of 55,000. That's nice to know.
With that, I'll move approval of grant agreement by document number 2022-223 with the Department of Forestry.
Is there a second?
I'll second. I did have a question or two. I wanted to know kind of a little bit more specifically where these 91 acres are in the Greater Sisters area. And I also I'll say thank you so much, Ed and Boone, for marshaling the troops and working with all of those landowners to be able to put together this huge, amazing package and bring $6.2 million to mostly Deschutes County, but Central Oregon broadly. But you know, with all of that money coming for 5,300 acres of treatment, I'm a little worried about the contractor capacity that's out there and the short timeline that we have to complete this work before June 30th, 2023. You know, Ed, do you have a feel for whether there is enough contractor capacity out there to absorb all this work that's coming in this big slug all at once?
It's definitely a concern, something we're watching. You know, for Deschutes County's piece of this, when I learned that we were going to be awarded that, I got this project bid out very rapidly. We haven't awarded the contract yet. Do that right after the grant agreement's accepted, but I was able to get 6 bids on that particular job, just as kind of a reference. So there is contract capacity out there. Some of the larger landowners kind of have it with contractors or equipment that they already have on hand. So some of the largest projects are actually going to be supported by some decent size logging companies. Quicksilver and Scott Logging are both on tap for Shanda, for example, to do some of their work. Which is a sizable amount of acreage, but it is a concern. You know, we've been meeting with the partners, urging them to try to get their jobs bid out as quickly as possible, so that we can get this work done. But we did really look closely at the project we were proposing, and that was probably the number one screen. Is, you know, do you have a realistic chance of getting this done? And so, you know, we did look at that. With an eye towards the possibility of getting it completed when we put the proposal together. To your other question, exactly where is this Deschutes County parcel? It's off of a road called Hurtley Ranch Road. It's directly to the east of Aspen Lakes Golf Course and Panoramic Estates subdivision. It's kind of on a ridge, and this was requested by a couple different adjoining property owners at the time before we put this into the grant. But we were just looking at this as a possibility because it neighbors several different residences and has not been treated previously. A lot of our properties around the county have been treated or in the process of being treated. This was one that we knew about that had been requested for treatment, but just were looking for the funding.
So it's a 91-acre contiguous block of county land in the Aspen Lakes area.
Yeah, it's a little bit larger than 91 acres, but I took some acres out for rock outcrops and those sorts of things. It's probably closer to 110 acres or so over 2 different tax lots.
And it's on the other side of Goodrich. So Aspen's on one side, so yeah.
Correct. Yep.
Sounds like a cool spot.
No, this is good. I know you did a lot of work putting all this together. I can't only imagine.
Yeah.
And the people that are doing the work by Eagle Crest, I've had really good feedback on that. You know, how that bid came in under what we expected, and they're doing nice work. So thank you for arranging that.
Yeah, that should be done tomorrow. I was just out there this morning, so that's going along well.
Oh, good.
Excellent.
So I was
Yeah,
going to
I
say
did
that.
second, so.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I was going to say that same thing after the second, the fact that when in doubt, make sure your chipper and equipment's going, and think about a career out in the woods this summer, so there's opportunities. And along those lines, though, I guess the Northwest Logger magazine, long history of documenting what's going on in the logging world, has featured Jacob Cox of Lapine. He's a subcontractor to Quicksilver. I'd like to see that magazine if anybody knows where to get one. But I just heard about it, and so he's out there with that feller Butcher opening up the forest in the Gilchrist State Forest. I know that. He was doing that, and he does some different projects around. So there are careers out there right now for hardworking folks that want to, anybody that wants to get out there and get some experience doing that right now.
Okay, so we did have a motion.
Yeah.
Did you second it?
I
then?
did second.
Yep.
Okay, seconded. Any further discussion? Commissioner DeBonne?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So Ed, thank you. That's like almost $1,200 an acre, that grant, if there's really 5,300.
Yeah, yeah. And it's almost the same proportions for our slice of it. 91 acres for $109,000. Over $1,000 an acre, which is, it's kind of mind-blowing, but I mean, it's a lot of work.
Right. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Okay, we have OHA, our contract, the accepting a grant. Janice, are you here? Thank you, Janice.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Janice Garceau, Director of Behavioral Health. For the record, I'm here with my colleague Barrett Flesch, Program Manager for Outpatient Services, and he knows this particular project inside and out, and we'll take it from here.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'd like to remind you, I visited you with an application for a Veterans Behavioral Health Peer Support Specialist back in November, which you approved as applying for that grant. I'm happy to say that that grant was awarded to us to the tune of $95,961 to provide veterans peer support services in the community. And again, to remind you that somebody who will work closely with our veterans population, working closely with the Central Oregon Veterans Ranch, Veterans Village, going out, working with our certified recovery mentor specialists, and with a particular focus on those veterans who may be houseless and homeless, and supporting them in behavioral health services and in recovery services. So this has been awarded, and we are here today to ask for your approval so that we can continue to accept that, so we can provide peer support services to our veterans.
So Barrett, is this the individual that's serving from Thursday to Sunday at the Veterans Village? Or will this be a different person?
This, I'm not aware of the person that you're speaking of. This is a behavioral health peer support specialist who works within behavioral health, and they work generally through the work week.
Okay,
And they go out and do outreach in the community. They work with case managers, with therapists who are working with some of the veterans to provide services and support and connect them to resources in the community.
But it does sound like they spend some time out at the Veterans Village.
They do, and that was part of the grant too, and that was part of our application. And again, we had a pilot project for this. We had been a grant recipient that ended. We applied to this new grant, and the funding was continued for us. So this is really a continuation of the good work that we did in the pilot project.
great. Well, it was, you heard the news that one of the gentlemen at Veterans Village actually was able to move out to his own apartment. I believe that was like 2 weeks ago. So that was really wonderful news for that gentleman and the program. So it's a great
Yep,
start.
that's exactly what we want to do with it. Yep.
A little bit of housing stability and some wraparound services can go a long way. I was really glad that you guys included some metrics on how many veterans per week we've been serving through this program up until now. I also, my question was about the question of whether this person would become a regular employee, bumped up from limited duration. And I wanted to ask about how, whether we anticipate the program that is supporting this position this year, whether we anticipate that grant program is going to continue in future years, or whether we have other thoughts for how we would cover that position if we converted it to regular.
That's a great segue. You're right where we're going. So Janice, you want to take it from here?
Yeah. Well, we don't know if that particular grant project is going to continue in its current form through the Oregon Health Authority. And often we don't find out until fairly late in the game. What I can tell you is that our perspective on this particular role is that it's a role we need to support regardless of whether or not there's a grant that asks us to do that. It is the only role of its kind in behavioral health in terms of peer outreach and engagement for veterans. It is a role that in our budget is relatively painless to find resources to cover. It is a position that bills actively for direct services, so it does generate both Oregon Health Plan revenue, other forms of revenue, and is eligible for our CCBHC wraparound payment. So there are mechanisms to generate revenue with the work that this position does. And it's a role that we would just simply like, by making it regular, to include it in our regular peer support positions. And then if we're in a moment where we have reductions, it doesn't automatically end. It becomes one of the positions we consider in terms of our priorities for services for certain populations.
One of my other questions was, so we have a Veteran Services Department in the county. They're not behavioral health, people, but they are trying to deliver various services to the veteran population as well. So I wanted to just understand a little bit more about the kind of synergy or the coordination of work there.
So as you probably know, as well as I do, or maybe better, the veterans program that we have as a specific program within the county is really focused on helping veterans connect with unrealized benefits, because so many veterans are navigating this complex system and they don't know what they have access to, and they're not really benefiting from their service. We in our program are focused exclusively on veterans who have untreated mental health or substance use disorders. So a pretty specific population of individuals. And in addition to that, we focus on veterans who have not been able to connect with services at the Veterans Administration, at the VA. Mm-hmm. So that may be because what they need in terms of level of care is not available to them at the VA. So veterans that have severe and persistent mental illness and houselessness is an issue may need more than weekly therapy. They may need case management, peer support services, as this individual provides, more intensive psychiatric supports, help with employment, help with housing, etc. So we do have a relationship with the Veterans Program at the county, and I'm certain that our peer and our staff link with those individuals when we're trying to connect a veteran to benefits to help get their healthcare needs met or their housing needs met, or et cetera. That would be a resource to this particular peer. His name is Jeremy, and he's excellent. Jeremiah, sorry.
Great.
I have a brother named Jeremy, so I default to Jeremy.
Jeremiah is a U.S. Marine Corps rifleman.
Yeah.
So he comes with experience.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. Do we have a motion?
I'll move approval of document number 2022-101 for funding from OHA for our Veterans Behavioral Health Peer Support Specialist.
And I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And Commissioner DeBonne?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So
Thanks.
thank you. That's great news.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. And do
Thank
we need a separate, does that also address the issue of converting the position from limited duration to regular?
I don't,
I don't know if I need a separate, or if it's
Unless that was
just
in
part
the
of
fine
the
print,
entire.
Dave?
That would have to require a resolution, a separate resolution, I believe,
Yes.
that works through finance.
yeah, let's bring, I mean, if you're making that an official ask, we need to bring that back, is what I'm thinking.
And does that happen in this time frame, or is that as part of our budget, our budget hearings, or do you need that to happen very soon?
Well, so my understanding is that today there would be either support or a recommendation for or not, and then we do have to bring back a resolution based on the guidance of the commissioners. I think I'm understanding that correctly.
Yeah, so we're looking for the recommendation today, not the approval of the funding for it being regular right now.
But I think the question Commissioner Chang had was, could it wait till May or June for the budget process, or do you need action on limited versus regular before that?
Well, I'd like to stand by. I really didn't study it for that. I'm, looking at the memo, and your last sentences are this ask, but I didn't think of it through that lens.
But, I mean, we can stand by, but the question is, do we stand by until the budget hearings, or do we stand by for a month?
So we were bringing it for you to consider today, not as part of the budget process. We obviously will follow whatever guidance is provided to us, but this was a specific
Okay.
ask related to this specific position and outside of the budget process.
I mean, and if we have an excellent peer support specialist in place, with a limited duration position, any way that we can avoid the risks of losing excellent staff people because they don't feel secure enough in their position, or they don't feel good about their benefits packages or things like that. We should be, in my mind, we should be taken care of sooner than later. So I would ask that we can bring this back in a few weeks to have a dedicated discussion specifically about the conversion from limited duration to regular, and talk about Janice could go through with us again how we ensure that we can pay for that, and why it makes fiscal sense in terms of the revenue it can that this position can generate and things like that.
Well, I'd feel real comfortable bringing it to the budget process unless there's a reason that wouldn't be possible, I guess, is my thought process.
So Commissioners, the resolution is already scheduled on the March 2nd agenda, just so that you're aware. So we thought that we were walking through the process that was how we do this, and this was Cheryl's recommendation for this position. It doesn't have to happen, obviously, and we would then have to pull it from the March 2nd agenda. But right now, this
That's
was
Wednesday.
scheduled for today.
So it's already planned on happening, yeah.
On Wednesday, and is it in the consent part of it?
It is, what I'm reading is that it's on the consent agenda.
Oh, I kind of, maybe we should, I mean, I realize what you're asking for, but I think maybe we should bring it back in a week or two.
Or we could just pull it off the consent agenda and have a more in-depth discussion on Wednesday.
Right, we are on a time crunch on Wednesday. Remember, we have to get our morning business done. So that's the other issue.
Yeah, let's pull it for Wednesday and we'll bring it back around.
Right. We can bring it back next week.
The next week?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is the Oregon Health Authority. Oh, it looks like it's Rita, Dr. Bacho. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, commissioners.
Hi.
So thank you for inviting us. For the record, my name is Rita Bacho, Program Manager for Public Health Advancement and Protection. I'm joined by my colleague, Kathy Christensen, who is the supervisor for the STD, HIV, and adolescent health programs. We are here to present some information regarding the HIV Early Intervention and Services Outreach Grant. At the end of this discussion, we'll be seeking the board's approval and the chair's signature on document number 2022166, which is the 5th year agreement between OHA and Deschutes County to continue to provide HIV early intervention services and outreach in the Tri-County area and beyond using OHA funds. So I'd like to give a little bit of information about this grant. So this year, 2022, is the 5th year of the HIV Early Intervention Services and Outreach, which is EISO grant for calendar years 18 to 22. Deschutes County will be eligible again for another 5 year of this EISO grant through OHA from calendar years 23 to 27. This grant was awarded to 6 local public health authorities in 2018 to deliver HIV early intervention services and outreach in 13 Oregon cities, including the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs and Siletz. Deschutes County is one of the 6 grant recipients. However, we partner with Crook and Jefferson counties, the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, and some coalitions and associations. The grant is one of the HIV Early Intervention Services and Outreach is one of the high priorities of the bigger vision of ending new transmissions of HIV in Oregon and ensuring that all people who are living with HIV have access to high quality care, which is free from stigma and discrimination. So I'll just share a little bit of information by way of data so that you can see what we seek to achieve with this grant. Okay. Kathy, can you see my screen?
Yes, we're good.
Okay, all right. So as you can see from this, the grant is used for disease investigations and partner service for HIV, syphilis, and gonorrhea. Throughout the COVID pandemic, the HIV STD team has maintained disease investigation and partner services for all HIV, syphilis, and gonorrhea cases. There was 72% increase in gonorrhea cases. We went from 96 cases in 2020 to 165 cases in 2021, and that represents 72% increase. There was also a 93% increase in syphilis cases. As you can see from this graph, we went from 14 cases in 2020 to 27 cases in 2021, and that represents 93% increase in syphilis cases. For HIV cases, as you can see from this graph, we went from 3 cases in 2020 to 7 cases in 2021. That represents 133% increase in regional HIV cases from 2020 to 2021. This grant is also used to help with testing. So with this grant, we are able to increase HIV and STD testing regionally. And we are able to provide outreach to providers to increase HIV and STD screening, especially for HIV and syphilis. We also use this grant to help with referral services. So we do access client needs with respect to sexual health, HIV, STD testing and prevention, and other services that they need. We also provide health literacy and education for HIV and STD prevention, HIV medical information, and also we educate them on the importance of antiretroviral therapy and viral suppression. With this grant, we are also able to provide access and linkage to care. So we ensure that linkage and engagement with HIV medical care happens within 30 days of diagnosis with HIV or any of the STDs. If folks are HIV positive and are on medication, this suppresses the virus and they cannot transmit the virus. So that is helpful. This grant helps us to be able to do that. We also use these funds to provide outreach to targeted areas and to also target people living with HIV or STDs or to prevent them. We also help them know their status so that they can and link to people. We also provide linkage of providers to people living with HIV so that they can benefit from the services. So with all that being said, the OHA has approved a budget for expenditure for January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022 in the amount of $431,784. So this amount will cover the cost of personnel, travel, materials and services, consultation. We'll also subcontract with HIV Alliance, and this amount will also cover administrative and other miscellaneous costs. So with all that being said, we'd like to request the board's approval and subsequently the chair's signature on the document OHA agreement number 155921. This will enable us receive the 5th year HIV early intervention services and outreach grant money from OHA so that we can continue to provide this very important services that we provide to our community. We are happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Rita, I have a question. the HIV number was 10, and then it went down to 3, and then it went up to 7. Does that mean that those 10 people are no longer in Deschutes County?
So the HIV number, you said it went from 10 to 3 to 7. So
I think
some of them
I'm just doing this off my memory from your
so
graph.
these are new cases. It's not incidents. It's not prevalence, but incidents.
Okay, new cases.
So that's new cases of HIVs that are being recorded.
It's not cumulative.
Correct.
Okay.
So it's not existing case. So each year represents new cases that we are seeing. So the 10 was recorded in 2019. So 10 new cases in addition to what already existed in the community. And in 2020, we had 3 more cases in addition to what we had in 2019 and previous years. Then in 2021, we had 7 additional cases in addition to all the prior cases that we had. So it's incidence data, not prevalence.
Okay, at least we didn't go up to 10 like 2019. I mean, you were saying
Right.
it was like 93% increase or something, but if you look at the prior numbers, yes. Okay. Are there any other questions?
Nope.
So is there a motion? I think we need to have board approval and chair signature.
I'll move board approval and chair signature of document number 2022-166, the agreement with Oregon Health Authority for HIV services.
Second?
Any other discussion? Commissioner DeBonne?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rita. Next one is, I believe, are we back to Janice again?
Sorry, Commissioners, I'm just getting my earplugs back in. I am back. I am here to request approval and board signature on document number 2022. Can you hear me?
Yes, just fine.
Oh, sorry.
Perfect.
Document number 2022-209, amendment number 2 to the 2021 Pacific Source Coordinated Care Organization contract. As you know, this is the contract for the Oregon Health Plan dollars that come to the Community Mental Health Program to provide services, core required services and safety net services to individuals with mental health and substance use conditions who are members of OHP. This amendment increases the overall revenue from the Coordinated Care Organization contract for county mental health services by roughly 5% overall. Specifically, there was a 1.9% increase in the capitation and program allocation, which is another sort of capitation portion of the contract. Sections of the contract that represents roughly $213,000 additional dollars annually. And then we were successful and had a lot of community support for adding a 70-cent per member per month charge or fee to specifically be earmarked to support crisis stabilization services. And that will result in about $504,000 depending on enrollments in OHP. The total for this contract is $14,575,849 estimated in revenue. The terms of the contract remain the same. The metrics this year are not different from the previous year, with the exception of some changes in the targets for certain metrics to reflect the impact of the pandemic. And last but not at all least, if we have the signatures today, the CCO will be able to execute the contract effective April 1, and that represents a $60,000 incentive for signatures today, because if we can't get it signed today, it can delay contract execution by an additional month, and we lose the additional revenue that we could have generated during that period of time. So if the board is in agreement and approving this contract and prepared to sign, then we can move forward with executing as quickly as possible.
Janice, it says for the 2021 year.
Correct.
Okay.
So the CCO changed the terms of the contract to make it auto-renewing. And if you recall, this was really in response to several years ago, when we were coming back to the board repeatedly each month, having to renew consecutive amendments. And so the contract was revised to have language that makes it auto-renewing, even though we negotiate its terms every year and there may be a change. The change now comes to you as an amendment versus an entirely new contract. So it's the 2021 contract with the changes to it that impact calendar year 2022.
Great. And I do have that document sitting right next to me. So if we do have a motion and it passes, we will be signing it. So we will get, did you say $70,000, I believe?
60,000.
60,
roughly.
okay, 60,000. If we get it in today.
Pressure's on.
Okay.
So Janice, I wanted to ask, so a 5% increase sounds pretty good to me, but I was curious whether like how that compares to previous years, like increases year over year in the past, and also just wanted to ask you, how do you feel about 5%? Is that, are you happy that you accomplished that, or did you want more, or?
Well, this is really an excellent increase compared to previous years. I mean, we have, in the last few years, we've increased each year. But this year it's a significant increase, and that's really because of the commitment to a PMPM amount to support stabilization services. And that I'm incredibly happy about that, because that required all the partners at the table, the hospital, primary care, the Central Oregon Independent Practitioners Association, Mosaic Medical, and the CCO to support this additional PMPM for stabilization. So it really reflects the community's recognition that that's a critical core service and a valuable service, and it was a kind of investment in the project that we're really happy about.
Yeah, great. And that was my other question. So when we looked at when we looked at projections for the stabilization center the other day, was this 504,000 showed up in grants and other funds? Is that where that was reflected, or was it somewhere else on that spreadsheet?
It was already reflected as, it's not a grant, it's our Medicaid revenue.
Got it.
So it's coming as OHP.
Got it. Okay.
So one question about the per member per month concept. Is that per member that Deschutes County Behavioral Health serves, or is that a OHP covered population of the county per member population?
The per member per month is the regional members capitated to the CCO. So our
CCO's number, not Deschutes County's number.
Well, it's Deschutes County's number for the capitation portion of the contract and for the program allocation portion of the contract, but this particular PMPM is for the region because we serve the entire region through the stabilization center.
That was kind of my question. Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Is there a motion?
Well, can I just ask one more question about the stabilization center component? So that does seem like a very significant piece to me, and when you mentioned all of the partners that were around the table that had to support that for it to move forward, you mentioned St. Charles and some other entities. I guess one thing I would ask is, do you think St. Charles's support for this PMPM piece, or increase is, in any way reflects kind of the requests and urging that we did when we met with St. Charles. I mean, they were not able to do a direct allocation for us, but is there support for this sort of a reflection of that they're trying to address our request in another way?
Yes. So the way that this contract works, because it's a value-based contract where you're paid for performance. So if you save money to the overall budget, then the partners in this contract participate in surplus. And the amount for CMHPs is very, very small. And we've been agreeable to that because we mostly need operating capital. But the amount for the hospital is significant. And this directly offsets their surplus. So in a sense, the partners who participate in that savings really gave a portion of that savings back through this arrangement to help support stabilization services, if that makes sense. And yes, I think it's a direct result of the advocacy that's happened for a number of years with partners around supporting crisis stabilization in the region.
Excellent. That's really great to hear that all that advocacy and partnership pleading work, is paying off.
Yes, and thank you for your part in that, all of you, in your various community contacts and roles with community partners. You've really been a big supporter of stabilization, so it's made a difference.
Thank you.
So I'll make a motion for board approval and signature of document 2022-209, Amendment 2 to the 2021 Pacific Source Coordinated Care Organization contract.
Second.
Any other discussion? Commissioner DeBonne?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So we will have that agreement available shortly.
Momentarily.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners. Appreciate it.
We'll get
Have
that
a lovely
$60,000
rest of the
incentive.
Well, yeah, we sign documents for millions sometimes, but this one's exciting.
Okay.
All right.
Greg
thank
Munn,
you.
would you like to join us?
Good afternoon. For the record, Greg Munn, County Finance. And the agenda item today is on page 142 of your packet, and it's the monthly finance update. And this update is for information available through the end of January. So in terms of the portfolio, the investment portfolio at the end of January, it was $286 million in the portfolio. And sort of a metric is that it's $39 million more than it was at the same time last year. And as I've reported probably several months, at least since May, about 19 million of that, maybe a little bit less now because we've spent some of those ARPA funds, but a big increase in that had to do with the receipt of those $19 million in ARPA funds last May. And we'll see another $19 million increase or a cash infusion come this May for the second piece of that. The rest of it has to do with just normal growth in the county in terms of operations as it's translated into revenue. So we just carry a little bit more in reserves, we carry a little bit more in contingency than we did before just because we're getting bigger. So we'd expect that to grow as well. In terms of policy, we're within all of our policy limits with the exception of the LGIP. And you can see that we're at $60,357,000 at the end of January in the pool, and our policy is $52.7 million. And the reason for that is the cash funds that we had sitting in the pool that were intended to be transferred into our First Interstate Bank account to cover February expenses happened one day later than normal. So it was a one-day transfer difference. So had that happened on time, you would have seen essentially the LGI pool amount in that upper left-hand box within the policy, and then the number down below in First Interstate Bank increased by $8 million or so. Well, it's good to know you're dialed in that close, though. I mean, that's the key to this whole thing. Is knowing that is the one key. Day and it pops out of and it shows up. So. Yeah, and I went flush when I missed it by a day. Oh.
Okay, in terms of interest earnings, the key I want to just share with you again is over in the upper box to the right, you'll see that we've had interest earnings year-to-date of $917,000, and that compares to last year of $1.5 million. So pretty significant difference. We're down $604,000 from last year. So I might have a little bit of good news coming up here, but
Well, that's
maybe-
definitely less.
yeah, it is a lot less. In terms of the overall portfolio, the LGIP, our state pool, has been a good place to put funds. It's like a money market account, which we have a lot of liquidity to. And it was paying more than some of our treasury options. So, you know, where we would be able to invest at 9 or 10 basis points or even less than that, a while ago we were able to get 45 basis points from the pool. So the goal always here is to maximize that amount of money that's in the pool at that policy limit. The good news is, or I should say the pool return of 45 basis points is still the same. It hasn't changed from month to month. And somewhat promising news is our average portfolio return has only reduced from 61 basis points to 60 basis points. So we try to find highlights where we can. It's just going down slower. And part of the reason why it's going down slower is if you look at the benchmark box, you'll see, for example, the 24-month Treasury, the return is 1.18%. It's kind of nice to not say it in basis points because it's over 1, so 1.18%. That is 45 basis points higher than it was last month. So we've really seen those Treasury rates increase significantly in the last few months. And likewise with the 36-month Treasury benchmark is 1.39%, which is an increase of 42 basis points from last month. So those are good numbers. They're going in the right direction. And I'll show you a little graphic on that here in a second. There were no purchases during the month. We were able to get our investments done after tax receipt season by the end of December. So we were good there, and we only had one redemption come in of $2 million. All right, if you turn the page, the one graphic I do want to point out here is the top one, the 24-month historic investment returns graphic. And you can probably identify which line I'm going to point out, but if you're in black and white, you want to use either to go with the red line or the line that's at the bottom of the graphic. So that's the 2-year Treasury return, and you can see back a couple of years ago how it really dropped during right after COVID hit in that February-March timeframe, and now it's actually starting to grow again, and it's up well over 1%, between 1% and 1.5%. So that's a positive. That's a positive note here on this return. So eventually, when this all starts to stabilize, I think we'll see our portfolio balance slowly start to increase as well, or return. Like I said, there was no purchases this month, so if you're looking at the portfolio detail, you'll see just gray lines, which those were the purchases we made last December, or last January, I said, and last year we were a little bit late in catching up with the tax receipts, so we were still doing a bunch of buying in that January timeframe, where this year we got most of it done, or all of it done, by December. And then if you flip the page over to position control, this is page 145. So the sum total of our FTE countywide approved by the board is 1,119.51. That's 3 FTE more than the prior month. And those are broken out between approved FTE increases. One was in the clerk's office, as you recall, the backfill for the retirement position. There was a half of an FTE approval in the DA's office. It was tied to a grant, and that was extending it through the end of June. And then Health Services had a half an FTE addition, and Community Development was at a 1.0 position increase that was approved by the board. Okay,
I
on to the,
noticed that CDD is up to 11.2 unfilled positions. It's at 13%, and I know that they are busy. So I worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's they've got to be feeling a lot of pressure, being short almost over 10%.
yeah. So not that this is a trend or anything, but if you look at the very bottom under the unfilled rate is the lowest it's been this year so far.
I know, and they're the highest.
The highest.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Maybe next month we can start, maybe it'll be below 964 and we'll start calling it a trend.
okay, we're going the other way. Well, that's good.
Yep. Okay, general fund, which is on page 146, you've got the dashboard there, just a couple of things to point out that and I'm going left to right, budget to actuals as you're looking at your sheet there. Our expenditures in the general fund through the end of January was almost $24 million, which represented about 55% of our budget. Contrasting that to last year at the same time, we had $20.4 million in expenditures, and we spent 49% of the budget. Resources, if you slide one to the right, we spent $35.7 million, or resources that have come in, $35.7 million in revenue, which is 87% of our budget. Again, most of those revenue come in the November timeframe, or by November. And last year it was 34.9%, or 34.9 million, so slightly more revenue, which is in the right direction, and 86% of the budget. Fund balance, $15 million. That compares to our budgeted fund balance of $13.5 million, so we're slightly ahead there, which we would expect that to grow slightly with when you spend 95 to 96% of your budget, and your fund balance is usually slightly more. You're going to have a slow increase in fund balance, so it's going in the right direction as well. And then I'm going to flip over through some of the detail here and just point out some highlights for you. On page 150 is the ending fund balance countywide, and if you look at that number in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see $164.5 million. So our ending, and as we talked about this, as you move through the year, we continue to refine our projections in both revenue and expenditures. And the reason why I point this out is because this is sort of the overall summary countywide of us moving forward in that fiscal projection. So we were projecting 161.1 last month, and we're now projecting 164.5. Just point out a couple of other highlights. If you would turn to page 151, you're looking at the general fund detail. We are projecting an ending fund balance of $12.8 million. That's on a budgeted ending fund balance of 10.9, so we're still projecting a little bit higher of an ending fund balance. But that's down from $13.2 million last month, so about a $400,000 decrease in the projection, and has really to do with a reduction in the clerk's revenue, which is highlighted by item number C, a $200,000 reduction in the clerk's revenue. And as you recall, the clerk month over month, especially during the pandemic, was increasingly bringing in more and more revenue. So there's a slight correction there. And then also down on the district attorney, there were some grant funds. I think the information went out that they lost some grant revenue. So the revenue projections are down a little bit in the general fund from last month. So that's going to drive our beginning fund balance down a little bit, but still above budget. All right, page 156 is the sheriff's office. Just a couple things to point out here. Projecting a fund balance of a little bit over $13 million on a budget of 12.2, which is good. And also, last month, that projection was 12.4 million, so about a $600,000 increase in fund balance, and that has primarily to do with a revenue resource projection of 44.9 million, where it was 44.6 before, and that's that line item, the sheriff's office revenues, which I believe is our miscellaneous revenues. They were looking at a projected revenue last month of $233,000 less, and now they're projecting a revenue of $90,000 more. And then on to the road fund, page 162, Fund 325. And here our fund balance projection has increased as well, and it's due to the top line on the resources section, motor vehicle revenue, projecting gas tax higher than what they'd budgeted originally. And as you recall, this was similar to some of the other projections we had during COVID. We were pretty conservative. And it turns out that a lot more people ended up driving during COVID than we thought they would originally. So,
Time for a road trip for some.
for a road trip.
Yeah.
But then we're going to be paying more for gas per the road fund. I believe it's like 50,000 more.
Yeah.
Fuel costs trending higher.
And probably fleet as well, yeah, across the board.
So I mean, okay, so we're getting more tax revenue, but we're paying more for gas.
And let's see here, what else can I highlight for you? That might be it. One other point I'll bring up is on page 173, the Health Benefits Reserve Fund 675. So last month, we were projecting an ending fund balance of 14.9 million, and that's up to about 15.5 million. And most of the reason for that is, you'll see on the bottom line under resources, claims, reimbursement, and other, we're projecting $1.5 million in that line item, whereas our budget was 82,000, and that's reimbursement for some of our stop loss claims that have come in. So that's it on the financials. Unless you have any other questions, the one other point I did want to mention is we had our investment advisory committee meeting last week, which I thought went really well. And just to let you know where that's heading, we've been spending a lot of time over the last probably year and a half discussing policy, investment policy, and there are ways to revamp it. And as you know, the folks that sit on that IAC committee are very smart and very savvy in terms of investments and are great guidance for me. And so the next steps are that I'll be bringing back the slightly adjusted, mostly just crossing T's and dotting I's on the investment policy adjustments for your approval. That will be sometime later this month. And then at the same time, we'll be taking what the IAC gave us that might be more substantial changes that would require the Oregon State Treasury review. And that needs to go through a longer process with the Treasury and requires specific action on their part, where we would come back to the board perhaps later in the year with an update to the investment policy. Commissioner Chang, I don't know, did you have any updates on IAC you want to talk about?
I mean, I just wanted to say that the IAC, the Investment Advisory Committee, continues to impress me with the way that they balance yield and risk and liquidity. They just any choice we have to make in terms of policy, they just parse it up along all those lines and come up with a very thoughtful recommendation that constantly impresses me.
Yeah. I probably couldn't say it any better than that, so thank you.
So Greg, I'm wondering, where does the Fair Association find out their budget in here?
So normally, I think what you're asking, normally on following page 168, Fair Fund 616, we do a calendar year
Right.
snapshot and report that way. We didn't have that done in time to make this report, so I excluded it this one time.
Okay.
That's
'Cause I
the
was-
one time that you asked, I didn't have it. so.
Well, because I go to those meetings every month, and I'm so proud of how well they are working on, following and doing everything right. And I was happy to hear that some things we're going to have a little more money added, but yeah. I just want to be able to be on top of it when I go to my meeting. Probably, I think it's like next Monday or something. So if you could just let me know.
Yeah, let me, I think I may have that report, and I can send it out to the three of you as well.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Could I ask one more question, Greg? So going back to the sheriff's office, page 156, the transfers out to the risk management fund, what line item does that show up in?
That's going to show up on, well, it's not going to show up here because, so if you look at the requirements section, you'll have, those are programmatic sections for the sheriff's office. They have different programs. And Eric might be able to answer this better than I can, but my assumption, it could be that the cost for insurance is included in each one of those. It's spread between those, or it's going to be, do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how they budget for it, but basically, the charges from risk management are an internal service charge that won't show up in this, this overview is such a broad overview. But it would be in like a line item for risk services within whatever fund they charge it to, or sometimes departments spread it out among several different funds within the department.
Okay.
But essentially, risk management provides all departments a lump sum, and that's the budgeted internal service charge for all the insurance programs. And then the departments decide how to allocate it within their budget.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me?
I did have a taxpayer mention to me that they were very concerned because our sheriff has done that purchase of vehicles. And I thought it was interesting, and so I thought about it for a moment, and then like an hour later, I said, honestly, having those cars in our community more, I think is really important in today's world, and having that officer drive his car home, it's parked in that neighborhood. I go, truly, it can be a good message, just to let the community know that they are being looked out for. So I just thought that was an interesting comment. Mm-hmm. And, I do think it was a good change.
Okay.
So thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 8. Oh my gosh. Okay. 320, it's 321.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Tarek Rawlings, I'm an Associate Planner with the Community Development Department. And before the board today is, for your consideration, is a recommendation for reappointments and one new appointment of a vacant seat in terms of the member list for the Deschutes River Mitigation and Enhancement Committee. There's a specific list. There are 5 individuals, 4 have expired terms, and so they've requested to be reappointed. And then there was one member position that was vacant as of this year, so we're requesting to appoint a new ecology expert to fill that 5th spot. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Oh, I did notice that Craig Harrell's appointment was a bit retroactive. So did we just miss that or something?
It looked like that, exactly. I think a lot of what this is my first year kind of scheduling and organizing some of this, and so a lot of my understanding was during COVID, especially Craig was, I think, the only member that had an expiration date early on in COVID, and so that was you're exactly right, Commissioner Adair, that would be the only term to be retroactively applied, so the expiration would be February 28th of 2023 for Craig Harrell. But everyone else would have a 2025 date.
Well, thank you for taking this over.
Of course, my pleasure. Thank you.
My question isn't so much about the memberships and the reappointments, but I'm just curious about the dollars that we're talking about. So, it sounds like these people are assembled to distribute out $90,000, and I'm just curious, how is that $90,000 number set, or how do they arrive at that? And is it pretty static over time, or is that increasing or decreasing?
I do think that number changes a little bit, but it looks like Mr. Gutowski might speak to that. I know it's also dependent on the location within the river in terms of the project.
Yeah, if I may, Madam Chair, members of the Commission, for the record, Peter Gutowski, Community Development Director. It's a great question. They receive approximately $90,000 a year. Half of that funds Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, hydro position, which has been over the years challenging, I think, when you look at restoration opportunities. The Mitigation Enhancement Committee, however, has quite a reserve, I mean, relatively speaking, has quite a reserve fund. I want to say it's close to $500,000. And because there have been years where they weren't doing any restoration, and it's just built up over time. And as Commissioner DeBonne may recall, the M&E committee years ago helped fund a local wetland inventory for Southern Deschutes County. So they have a pool of resources, and what they're doing now is trying to position themselves in light of all the emphasis that's being placed on the upper Deschutes from a restoration standpoint, how to partner with whether it's U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service or other entities to really get a bigger bang for the buck. Years previously, this is probably more than you want to know, they were doing restoration that was putting wood in the streams, and as you can appreciate with the flow regimes that we've seen, which are now going to get moderated with the Habitat Conservation Plan, that just wasn't a wise use of funding. So they're still an active committee. They're only meeting once a year, but I think the momentum that's been created with the Deschutes Basin Board of Control, organizations like the Deschutes River Conservancy and others, make this committee as relevant today as they've ever been.
And the funds can be spent anywhere in the upper Deschutes, or?
Do you want to?
That's my understanding,
Yeah.
yes, is that it's limited to the upper Deschutes Basin, but depending on the location within the river and past project application, I think that's a lot of what steers the new allotment of funding to projects.
It's upstream from their hydro facility, which is basically, think of Bill Healy Bridge and upstream.
Peter, I thought that was interesting. You said it wasn't a wise use of funding, and we're now nominating Ted Wise to the group. So
That was
Were you thinking like
inadvertent
that?
pun or inadvertent correlation there. Ted Wise is an extraordinary ODF&W employee who's Tareq had an opportunity to partner with just recently, but Ted brings a wealth of experience. I think Nick knows him as well. He'll be very value added for that committee.
So I didn't do my homework on this, and my thought is Ted Weiss is probably available as a committee member or not. And so as I say, you may not be the one to ask this question to, but would there be interest in other irrigation district type board members to be on this? So as I say, I don't know that you'd be the right audience to even ask this question, but yeah, because COID with Craig Harrell there, but then after that it's the River Conservancy and Watershed Council and fisheries. So which is all good stuff, but would a district want to be here? Is kind of my question.
And so Craig Harrell's specific placement on the member is because that hydropower was specific to Central Oregon Irrigation District. So he's a district representative as well as an expert in water rights and irrigation processes. But it doesn't exclude the possibility of them including other experts, like you'd mentioned, if that was a specific ask of the board to include another irrigation district rep on the member list.
Well, and yeah, as I say, I don't have enough expertise to know why, but I'm just thinking, would there be a request by a district if there was a seat available? So it's, as I say, I'm just kind of asking an open question.
Yeah, I don't think so. Just to build off Tarek's response, Commissioner, it's a good question, but it's the funding obligation that's ongoing, and their ODF&W's FERC, Federal Emergency Regulatory Commission. Their FERC license, I want to say, goes out into the early 1930s, and then it's up for renewal. So COID is the one that's got a true vested stake in that because of their financial obligation.
And everybody's communicating amongst themselves anyways.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any lack of communication.
And I would say, Steve Johnson, Craig's predecessor, did a great job as well. When I first started in 2004, I was sitting in Tarek's seat and had a chance to be kind of the staff liaison. COID is, I will just say, very well versed and well represented, even though they have one seat because of their knowledge of the hydro system.
Is there a governing document that identifies those seats? I'm a little unclear as to how I think that's what Commissioner DeBonne was getting at.
I think it stems, we can come back and give you that information. It stems from a 88 conditional use permit that then stipulated this committee. And I think that there
1987.
are bylaws that we could, that the board helped acknowledge or establish over the decades. I don't have it right in front of me, but we can certainly.
Yeah, I have a copy of the bylaws if you'd like, Dave.
I'm just curious if that identifies what categories of members that might get the commissioner.
They do. They have specific designation requirements as well as the term limits, and yeah, happy to bring that back if that would be.
So
I guess I would just say that we're not talking about a whole lot of money here. So when irrigation district staff are choosing where they're going to put their time to try and get investment directed into the basin, I think they're hunting bigger game than a $90,000 a year fund. Just when they're trying to decide where they're going to spend their time. That would be my suspicion on why they wouldn't bother but show a lot of interest in participating.
As I say, it's an open question, so I don't have enough expertise. What about possibly reappointing the 4 seats and then just taking another little step here to get Mr. Weiss on possibly after review of everything? Because then it's kind of best of both worlds, just understanding the total number of seats and what was the vision when the document was put together. And
Certainly.
if there's an opportunity for somebody to raise their hand and say, I've been meaning to ask about that, just to open up that window a little bit. So that's a proposal to my fellow commissioners.
I think we should just move ahead with it. I mean, ODFW was a central player in developing this mitigation program, and Ted Wise is their opportunity to be represented on the, on this committee. So,
Well, Jerry George is part of the committee also, it looks like. That's a
Right.
non-voting member. Wait, where are you looking? Oh,
At the bottom, he's the last one listed. He's a member.
I would assume that if he's the coordinator of the program, he's a non-voting member.
That is correct, Commissioner Chang. Yeah. And just maybe a little bit of context on Mr. Wise's recommendation is that he was referred by Amy Stewart, who is also an ODF&W ecology expert, who just wasn't interested in continuing necessarily in that role, and so she along with a couple other ODF&W folks had recommended Mr. Wise. That's where that recommendation comes from.
As I say, I don't have deep knowledge on this, so I'm just kind of asking a question or two. So yeah, as I say, I propose that maybe we don't appoint that 1 seat for now and come back around for it.
And I guess I specifically want to propose that we just move ahead with these recommendations.
Well, using the, someone said we were hunting bigger game. My neighbors were counting the elk herd, and it was 200 in my neighborhood. So to me, that's a good number of hunting, because I saw the herd the other day, and I didn't think it really looked like 200. So glad to know they actually counted. So do we have a motion then?
There's two different motions.
Well, I know. Well, then one of them will
As
get.
chair, as the third member of the commission, which way you lean?
I think we should get the membership cleared up today, because we truly missed out on opportunities a couple years ago. And I do agree that it is $90,000 worth of funding.
Go ahead and make your motion,
Madam Chair?
Commissioner. Yeah.
If I may, I pulled up the bylaws, which gets to kind of Dave's anchoring question here. Admittedly, these have been in place for decades, but it's duties and officers of members, and then I get to, I'm sorry, I'll just read it to you. Deschutes River Mitigation Enhancement Committee shall consist of 7 members appointed by the Deschutes County Board as follows: 1 member representing COID, 2 members with special expertise in fisheries, 2 members from local conservation organizations, and to Commissioner DeBonne, 2 members from the community at large. So there is, again, I don't, to the extent that the at-large position is open, there is that ability to, bring in additional viewpoints for sure.
See, and that kind of support. So I think of it as an opportunity, a member at large, somebody that's interested in this topic, because the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife ecology expert is gonna be there by career if there's a topic that crosses that world. So, yeah, that kind of supports my position of we should be getting somebody totally off of this domain to be at the table.
But again, we're talking about a $90,000 a year fund with very specific parameters around it. I mean, if you want to go try and recruit somebody for this, I guess that we could postpone this. But otherwise, I just don't think that there's people lining up at the door who want to serve in this particular way. And you know, we're using, you know, valuable Board of Commissioner time trying to create an opportunity that isn't, you know, that there aren't necessarily a whole lot of people who are, you know, urgently interested in.
Well, the one member at large that you're referring to, it looks like it would be Patrick Griffiths, because that is a reappointment request. Is that, am I reading this
That's
correctly?
correct. I was going to note the same exactly, Commissioner Dare.
Okay, all right. So if we were going to, Water Resources Manager, you know, if we were going to make a change.
Oh, I see. Yeah, there are two that are members at large, and those.
Those are the two, and Kate is the chair, and the term doesn't end until next year, so.
Correct.
Okay. Well,
So go ahead and make your motion, Commissioner.
Okay. I move approval of the Deschutes River Mitigation and Enhancement Committee recommended member appointments as detailed in the staff memo.
And I'll second it.
any further discussion? Okay, Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Commissioners. Have a good afternoon.
No, thank you so much. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Tariq. Other items?
I got a little list of things to throw out there real quick.
Okay,
Ready for that?
go ahead.
Tomorrow morning, legislative call, Senator Finley's office. Commissioner Adair, you might have dialed in once or twice in the last few weeks. I haven't done it since I came back from Washington. Are you planning on doing that?
It's your turn.
Okay, so I'll do that. There you go. So made that clear enough. This is just a project a couple projects, in fact. So there's a property cleanup that I'm going to be calling for help on. So a property owner, it was a grow site that was undocumented this summer, and now there's going to be possible environmental damage out there if we don't get plastic out. So I'm just letting you know, this is a public meeting. I'm just saying I want to spin up some help on that. So I don't want to share much more detail right now, but that's coming around, and it's really going to help somebody out to get this property cleaned up, and it will be an opportunity to see what a undocumented, nobody ever got in trouble, but it looks like it wasn't a good situation. So,
I actually
And,
had
yeah, I
to
mean-
tell the sheriff's office when they did destroy plastic with a grow that was illegal, that they can't do that because the plastic was blowing into
I
all
know.
the
Well,
neighbors,
that's
and they
another
raised
situation.
hay,
Yeah.
and it destroys the whole value. So hopefully, yes, this one was never, was it harvested then illegally?
Well, that's the thing. It's undocumented. We don't know if it was illegal or not, but it possibly or probably was. So, yeah,
Okay.
I'm going to work with the sheriff on that, and possibly the marijuana industry is my point. So this is going to be a community call to get something cleaned up, and it's very much not for county staff per se, but it may be a community effort. A question, accessory dwelling units. I know that the state legislature's fixing a bill now. We got to wait till the end of the year for, can somebody give me clarity real quick? What are we waiting for at the end of the year? Department of Forestry to publish
762.
wildfire maps or something?
Yeah, Senate Bill 762.
Yes, the Department of Forestry, and Peter knows it better than I do, but they have to finalize their defensible space standards or something of that nature and exactly where they're applied. I can't remember what the connection is. I literally have the legislature's page. I'm continuously refreshing it right now because that bill that makes that connection is up for third reading here within the next half hour.
Well, my thought process is maybe once the legislature's done with what they're doing, is that we write a letter to whoever wants to hear about it and say, whatever you need us to do, we're going to do it, and we're, so we could possibly move forward before the end of the year and into next year. I don't know if it's possible, but I would advocate for us to be able to say, yes, we're a wildfire zone, yes, we're going to defend our space, and, yes, we're going to follow the rules that come online, and we would like to be able to proceed. So just an idea, why sit around for a year waiting for somebody to do something? Maybe we can write a letter to say, we'd like to proceed if there's a path. So these are just a whole bunch of little notes I had here today. So Core 3 capital ask letter, I support that letter possibly, and we don't need to take a ton of time, but we, just making sure we're on the same page or whatever we're going to do here.
Did we all see it? Did you bring it down? And we need to get that.
I didn't print it, I just saw it.
We need to get this approved and sent, I believe, today. Do we not?
Yeah. So it's Bill 5202 capital that they're talking about, and is it a line item at that amount already, or is that our ask, or what?
That's a line item, that's what's been.
Thank you. Yeah, okay, so there's $9.5 million being discussed, and this would show support for that. So one of the interesting things is, which would be very valuable, is just like we got $350,000 to bring utilities across the road, if this gets approved, so I'm thinking a step ahead here, that's kind of implicit support for something to happen out there. So I like it in multiple ways. Because land use is to follow. We don't. It's not going to be in the UGB. We'd have to figure that out. But if the legislature helps fund it, that gives us a leg up.
Yes.
I guess I don't understand the legislative process well enough to be certain that we're not competing with ourselves if we submit this request. I mean, we just saw a draft budget reconciliation bill that contained money for a courthouse expansion, money for the LaPont Community Health Clinic, our HB 4123 request, and then we just heard about this $350,000 for the Oasis Village. So I just would want to be sure that if we put in this request, they don't say, oh, well, okay, since Deschutes County is getting this, we're going to subtract from the other dollars that we've already kind of signaled that we're going to invest there. And if that's the case, again, with the Core 3 project, my high level concerns have always been, one, let's not compete with ourselves for money, and two, if the benefits are state level benefits, then especially in terms of emergency preparedness, then I think the state should be ponying up, and this is a great opportunity for the state to pony up. But I just want to make sure that this is not going to, shrink the amount of money we get for our courthouse expansion or something like that. Does anyone understand the legislative and budget reconciliation process well enough to be able to say that?
So I think that's an excellent question. And when Scott Aycock was here a couple months ago and did the presentation, and when the board committed to the 300 acres at that time, or to reserve the 300 acres, I should say, that was a message from the board that, be very careful on what's applied for and not to compete with other priorities. And so I cannot answer that with this, but I will vet that with Scott Aycock to get a clear yes, and then I can follow up quickly. I should be able to get that reconciled pretty quickly and get an answer back to you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I guess, maybe we could approve, could we do an approval pending your clarification on that and verification that we won't be undermining ourselves?
You could make that conditionally, that you sign it and she's authorized to send it, assuming she gets that confirmation.
Great, thank you. That's my only concern.
This actually, to me, is like a bigger ask because it's for, in case of Cascadia, and I know the governor really wants to have us in a better way. I mean, if the landing field at Roberts Field has already been extended because of Cascadia, I feel like this only makes sense. So I wouldn't think it would be held against us.
So, yeah, and I do support this, and that's fine. I mean, if we can get clarity that we're going to compete against ourselves, that'd be bad. I don't know that, who could answer that question very specifically. So then we're possibly putting Christie in a spot where it's going to be.
I mean, various legislators will understand the process well enough to say, basically the question is, have they got this list and they've got some money left, and we're like, hey, give us $9 million of that, or does this kind of get thrown into the mix, the total mix of requests, and then various requests might get rejiggered because of this?
I'm just thinking the spot. So how about we have correspondence associated with this saying we don't want to compete against ourselves? I mean, just exactly what you're saying. Leave this letter by itself and authorize, a introductory paragraph or the email that is with this attachment says, if this competes against ourselves, we're.
I mean, I also just think that there are, we have a number of legislators who have a whole lot of, years of experience. Senator Knope's office, that we have people who would know the answer, I think, on how the sausage making works, and could either reassure us or raise a red flag for us with
Well, and I'm just thinking through the process of it's such a busy crunch time. It may be better just to put a little piece of paper on top that said, hey, if this is going to take away from some other projects, don't make it higher. I don't know how you want to say
Whitney,
that.
is there anything that you wanted to add? I had a 7:40 conversation this morning with Phil Schwartz, and he said we were getting things. I noticed that Crook and Lake County both got $2 million for their fair, and we didn't get on that soon enough. So, but we're getting, that's what he said. We didn't get on that soon enough.
So just for the boards, to kind of pull all the updates you've been getting together today, the Oasis Village, the courthouse funding, the Core 3, they're all in the same -1 amendments for House Bill 5202. Go ahead.
Yeah, so now I see the reason why the urgency is that the subcommittee passed it this morning, and the full committee is scheduled to consider it tonight at 6:30.
Oh.
Okay.
So we don't have time to even ask that question, probably. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
So it's all in -1 then, all of these different, okay.
Kind of answers it.
So
It's already in there.
And Phil Schwartz just responded and said, full Ways and Means will meet tonight at 6:30 to pass them out to the full committee.
So the stuff that's in there already stays the same, and this would be an addition.
Oasis, Core 3 is showing as a line in this -1 amendments.
This was submitted a while back. I mean, this had been submitted.
So we're just re-emphasizing support.
Yes.
Okay. So it's already in there as well as courthouse, Lapine Community Health Clinic, HB 4123, and Oasis Village.
Correct.
Okay.
did we change HB 4123?
I have no problems with that.
Did we change HB 4123 then to just 1 million? Remember, originally it was 1.5?
That was just an error that was reported to us.
Yeah, I coordinated with Phil this morning on that, and he said he was seeing a separate line that was correlated to the city of Bend for 1.5, and so he was seeking clarity from staff if that 1.5 is for a different purpose than the 1 million, and was going to follow up once he had that clarification.
Okay.
But the city of Bend's lobbyist, he felt like he understood where the line items were, and he said it was only $1 million.
Yeah, and then in House Bill 5202, there's the City of Bend for Shelter Services and Infrastructure, Hygiene Services, and Homeless Outreach 1.5. And so I think that was where Phil Schwartz was seeking clarification, but I think they're likely, it would make sense that they're separate things.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like we should send the letter. They're all in -1.
So I move approval of the letter in support of the Core 3 project in Central Oregon in the amount of $9.5 million as the legislature decides.
Second. Yeah.
Any other discussion? Commissioner
Probably
DeBoe?
be wordsmithed a little bit, but speed is of the essence.
Yes.
I'd say just, yeah, make the font a little bigger and send it, I mean, you know, so it's a quick read for them is my point, yeah. So,
Okay, so Commissioner DeBoe said
yes.
and Commissioner Chang.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a little bigger font, because really, I'm sure they're sick of reading things by now.
Or maybe bold some words in there too. Okay, so one more item, homeless, you know, there's going to be possible money coming from the state on this, a task force. But I'm calling also for an opportunity to start kind of the outreach effort. I have a hunch that if we get some alignment with, you know, the community organizations and public safety, and I've been talking about this for a while, and, you know, churches in our community, we could probably reduce some of the homeless impact by 20% just by getting out there and getting serious. You know, as I say, and I'm not picking fights or pushing buttons here, other than saying, let's work together. Let's do a little bit of outreach effort and, you know, help the people that are asking for help. And my thought is, because we're doing a little homework on this, think about it, the coordinated entry point for homelessness, coordinated entry point. This is the point where you say, oh, I need help, and this is the starting point. There's probably a subset of people that just aren't going to be asking for help. And they, you know, they may need some help, or they may need a little tough love, or they need a kick in the pants to remind them that please don't set up in the forest for a long time, or whatever's going on. Lots of scenarios out there. So it's that alternate to the coordinated entry point of, you know, what else can we be doing? Because if you're not asking for help, you know, where else could we be asking you to be at this point? So it's just another community effort to try to start a process and, you know, reduce this whole homeless impact by 20% by the end of the summer kind of thing. That's a vision. I'm just starting the process today. Thank you.
I think that there's a whole lot of people doing a whole lot of work in a coordinated way already, but
yeah. Yep, and I want to coordinate with them. You know, there's another step here, though. As I say, it's instead of just that coordinated entry point, it's that other one.
yeah, I mean, are you saying you see 4123 that the office that would be set up as a coordinated entry point?
No, I'm just I'm welcoming people.
When you're
for the
saying you want a coordinated entry point, you're talking about something else.
Yeah, I'm talking about something other than the coordinated entry point.
Okay. The one other item that I would chime in on is I'm having discussions with the Forest Service, members of Congress about the 4606 road. This is something that I'm not sure whether the other commissioners are still hearing about it, but we heard a whole lot about last year, and there are numerous recreationists in our community who really want to be able to access the federal lands, the Deschutes National Forest, and their access point, just north of Shevlin Park, onto the 4606 road now has 3 gates up on it, and the Forest Service is about at the point where they're not necessarily interested in pushing their legal case that they have easement through that section of local access road. So the proposal is, the proposal I'm shopping around and exploring with people is to create a whole new access point, which would be in a different location, to get into the 4606 road and into the Deschutes National Forest. And it seems like this is a viable, from discussions with the Forest Service, it seems like this is a viable idea. And with our, there'd be a substantial amount of driving on county roads to get to that. And so speaking with our road department, it seems like it's a viable idea. And when I was in DC, I mentioned this a little bit with Senators Merkley and Senator Wyden, and they were both very interested in this kind of solution approach. So I think that the idea is, I'm going to continue to explore that idea and can bring more of the county and the full Board of Commissioners in on that process if you're interested.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, all right. And I did have a conversation regarding a psychiatric hospitalization on this side of the mountain, and I'm going to be working on sending another letter to the governor regarding that situation. So got a little more of the backstory on what's going on out there. And heard from the sisters community about several individuals that are in the community that clearly have major mental health issues and truly need some help. So I appreciate those stories this weekend. We need to go to executive session, don't we? Is there anything else now? Eric, is there anything else now, or are we going executive?
I don't know if Nick has other items.
I don't.
Okay.
No other